Hi guys, can you hear me? You can give a thumbs up. Perfect. We're just going to give people a couple minutes to join. There should be 8 of us in total. Okay, I don't think we should wait too much longer. We've got a lot to get through. All right, guys, welcome to the SPSS test training. I'm your tutor, Sarah. I've been tutoring for a long time now, last 4 years, so I kind of know this course backwards. So any question you have, any struggle you've had, please do just like ask me whenever. I'm not the kind of person that's going to notice when you put like little hands up, like emojis. You're going to need to unmute yourself if you want to ask the question. Can you all see my screen okay? You can give a thumbs up for that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so yes, it says camera on, microphone off. I'm not too strict about this, to be honest. I don't mind. I understand it can be more comfortable to have your camera off. But what it does is that it kind of helps me just to see your facial expressions, to see if I'm actually making any sense or if you're confused or anything like that. Okay, so it's really up to you at this point. And like I said, for questions, you can put them in the chat box. That's not a problem because we will, after the first couple of hours, we're going to have a time for questions. Because I know if a lot of you are doing this training, that means you're coming in with a lot of questions. So you can put them in the chat box or you can just wait until the question time. And please don't raise your hand. Please unmute yourself. Okay, so about me. So guys, I was an IPCommer like you back in the day. I graduated in 2023. Fun fact, I was the valedictorian and the best thesis award recipient. But I don't like to brag. I'm probably one of the few South Africans you'll likely meet in your life. Listen, if you come to South Africa, obviously you'll meet a lot, but it's something I hear a lot from Europeans. It's like, oh, I've never met a South African, so now you've met one. I'm clearly strong at math. That's why I'm doing this, and very, very humble. But guys, I'm really an unserious person, okay? So I really don't want you to engage with me as like a lecturer or a teacher. I genuinely do feel like just a peer. So don't, no formalities. You can be informal here. Especially because the point of this training is that it is for you, right? We're trying to get you through stats. Okay, so for the structure of today, okay, this is kind of a standard slide. So the way I'm going to do it, because they don't usually do SPSS trainings, is I'm going to start you off with a little bit of foundational theory because the SPSS test is not only about like can you click where you need to click and produce the correct output. A lot of it is identifying what you actually need to do in the question based on your knowledge of the theory. Okay, so I'm going to go through some theory with you, and then we'll go through demonstration. So a little bit of theory, a little bit of demonstration, and at the very end, we'll do practice questions. Okay. If I'm going too fast or anything, you can stop me. And if you need me to repeat anything, I can do so. Okay. I'm keeping time. So if I feel like we don't have time, then I'll let you know. Okay, I kind of all said all of that. Obviously, we're not going to use past exam questions because IPCOM, we don't have access to past exam questions, but we are going to use questions from your exercises and assignments throughout the course because they are a very good indication of how you're going to be asked the questions in the test. And yeah, it says grab pen and paper, but honestly, if you're whatever, just whatever you use to take notes, take a lot of notes, as many as you can. I'm not going to go into theory in depth, by the way. Like a lot of the theory is for the exam. So I'm just going to give you surface level, this is what you need to know, because it's more about understanding than it is about being able to regurgitate any definitions at this point. Alrighty. So if you haven't already gotten some communication about this, there's also going to be an exam prep training session next week. There's going to be four. Wednesday and Thursday morning and Saturday and Sunday. I'm also training for those, and that's going to go really in depth on the theory. It's going to do hand calculations, like it's going to cover absolutely everything you need for the exam. It is a long session. It's obviously 4 3-hour training sessions, but that's because stats is probably the most content heavy course for first year. So we need the time and we need the practice. Okay, so I don't know where all of you are at with SPSS. Some of this might be redundant for some of you because I'm starting from the very beginning. And hopefully I'll say something enlightening along the way. But then for others, I'm explaining in a way for the first time. So just be patient if it's all repetitive for now, because the hard stuff is coming. Hey guys, I'd really appreciate this if you could share in the chat. Where are you on the scale for the SPSS test? It'll give me a good indication at the end. We're going to come back to this. Let's see what you guys are saying. Okay. Okay. Seeing a lot of 4s and 5s. You find the tutorials, but it all just disappears. Okay. Yeah, that's a matter of practice. Okay, that's something that's super underrated with the SPSS test, is that you can have all the notes and have all of the steps and everything's fine. But if you don't practice, if you don't actually spend time with the software and just click around and just do it over and over and over again. I'll tell you this, that when I was in IBCOM, I actually didn't do well at the SPSS test, but then I started teaching it. And because I've done it over and over again, now it's like second nature. So practice with the actual software is going to be key if you feel like things just disappear. Okay. Yep, SPSS interpretation is also a common problem. Again, it's familiarity. So if every time you're looking at an SPSS output, it looks brand new, there's a bunch of numbers, it's going to feel overwhelming. So what I'm going to help you do is kind of train your eye to know where to look, where to go, to just so that you know what you need to know. And there are a few obviously key things that we can go over. But because you're all at 4-5, that tells me that some of today's stuff will just be repetition. So just, sit back and just watch it happen. And then tomorrow you'll be a bit more challenged, most likely. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Oh, one last thing before we actually start is Um, you're gonna get a 10-minute break at some point in the session. I'm feeling maybe after about an hour and 15 minutes. I'll give you a 10-minute break, but it's pretty relaxed. If you feel like I've just thrown too much content at you and you need 5 minutes to just like reset or go to the bathroom or whatever, you can just unmute yourself and be like, hey, would really appreciate a break. I'll do the same if I need one. Okay, so I have a lot of experience teaching statistics, and one thing that happens a lot is I'll ask my student like, okay, how are you with like the unit of analysis, the variable, the level of measurement? Like, do you know what that all means? And they'll be like, yeah, we did it in ISSR. It's okay. And then when we get to like week 4, week 5 into the tests of significance, and understanding the levels of measurement are key to like identifying what to do in a question. And then they suddenly won't know what a level of measurement is or how to find it. So I'm just going to go over this really important theory quickly, not in depth, just to make sure we're all clear on what these things are. Okay. So when someone's doing a research study, okay, the first thing that they have to identify is the topic that they want to study, right? Once they've identified the topic, now they need to actually go out and do the actual research, like the field work. Who they approach, okay, or what they look at is your unit of analysis, okay? So if you're going to send out a survey, who are you surveying? Who is going to respond to your survey? That is the unit of analysis, okay? Your variable is a characteristic or attribute of that unit of analysis. So let's say someone decides they want to study private tutors, okay, for whatever reason. You could name any list of attributes about me, right? Because I'm the unit of analysis. They would want me to respond. And you could measure anything. You could say, how long have you been tutoring? My answer is 4 years. Okay. Length of time tutoring, that's a variable. Okay. How old are you? I'm 29. Age, that's a variable. What else? What is your subject of, what subject do you tutor? I teach statistics. That's the variable, the subject that I teach. So I want you to think of variables as characteristics. Then the next step would be, cool, I know what variables I want to measure. I want to measure her age. I want to know her subject. I want to know her nationality, right? All these things about me. How do you measure it? Always think to yourself, how would it appear in a survey? Okay. So ask me, what is your nationality? Okay. What are my options? If they say, what is your nationality? Can I say 20? No, I can't. There's a particular way it's measured. I have to say, I am South African, meaning I put myself inside a category to answer the question, and that's the only way it can be measured. That would be the nominal level. Okay, categories that have no meaningful order or ranking. What it means to have no meaningful order or ranking means if the list of options is like South African, Egyptian, Dutch, German, there's no reason I started with South African. I could have put South African fourth in the option box. Okay, so it doesn't really matter which order they came in. That's nominal, it's the simplest form. Okay, ordinal, next level. It's also measured in categories. So nominal and ordinal are friends. Okay, they usually work together. The difference, though, is that ordinal does have some kind of meaningful order. Now, that can be a numerical order because numbers are naturally like in order, or it could be like a logical progression or like a chronological progression in terms of time. Okay, so if you look at the ordinal examples here, so very often they present age as a ratio variable, right? Okay, so how can age be an ordinal variable? Well, if age is measured in categories. So if they ask the survey question, how old are you? What is your age? And then they present me with these options, 18 to 25, 25 to 35. I have to put myself in 25 to 35. But do you see how that does not give them my precise age? They don't know I'm 29. They just know I'm between 25 and 35. Okay. Another kind of ordinal variable that you'll see is like this. How often do you watch Netflix? Never, sometimes, often, every day. Okay, what kind of meaningful order has that been put into? Least frequent to most frequent. If I put it in a different order, like often, never, every day, sometimes, intuitively, you know that that's in the wrong order. Okay, so if it has order, could be ordinal. Hold on, new person coming in. Okay, welcome to the people coming in. Okay, so nominal, ordinal, categorical variables, they're friends. Now, the other side, interval and ratio, they're continuous variables. Okay, and what that means in simpler terms is that when you ask the question in the survey, the response is a precise number always. Okay, so how old are you? 29. Okay, how tall are you? 175. Okay, so they're always numerical measures. Now, the difference between them is quite subtle. So they both obviously have meaningful order because they're numerical. They're equidistant because they're numerical. So the difference between 1 and 2 is the same as the difference between 5 and 6. Okay, that's how numbers work. They're just equidistant. The key thing is this absolute 0 point with ratio. Okay. I don't know how clear you guys are on the absolute 0 point, but the easiest way to understand it is when you ask the question, like, how many, I don't know, how many sweets do you have in your pocket? Okay, that's the variable. And you answer with 0 because you have no sweets in your pocket. That 0 means that the sweets do not exist. Okay. So when a variable is measured at 0 and it means do not exist, that is what absolute 0 means. Okay. So the most common example used for interval is temperature. Why? Because if you ask, hey, what temperature is it outside? And the answer is 0 degrees, it doesn't mean that temperature doesn't exist. And it doesn't mean that the degrees are not there. It just means that it's cold and it can keep getting colder. Okay. Yeah, and then if we look at the ratio variable, common one again is age. So I wanted to show you age as an ordinal variable and age as a ratio variable. Okay. When it's measured as a precise number, so in a survey, it would just be an open text box and you could provide your age. If it was age as an ordinal variable, it would be categories. Okay. How are you guys feeling about these three things? Thumbs up is all good. Okay. Yeah, cool. I hope this is all suddenly clearer than it's ever been before, because that's what it needs to be. Your levels of measurement are so important to understanding, like reading a question and knowing that, like, I don't know, it's a regression and it's not a Pearson's R, right? Or it's a chi-square test for independence and it's not, a t-test. Your level of measurement makes a huge difference. Okay, we're going to do a little intro to SPSS demonstration now. This is where if you guys are feeling semi-okay with SPSS, it's probably not going to be your favorite part of this session. But you never know, you might learn something new. So, as you guys can see, this data set, okay, it's called VG Sales Critics. So, this is your variable view. I don't know if you can see at the bottom, variable view is clicked on the right-hand side. Okay, you're pretty much always working in variable view. Only when you do quantitative research yourself do you work in data view, because if you click on data view right next to it, okay, this is actually like how you measure your data, meaning, yeah, so this would be a game, right? Because it's video games, Super Mario Brothers. And you can see all of the variables listed in the columns, okay? What genre is Super Mario Brothers? It's genre number 4. If you go to variable view, and you find genre, you can see in the value labels that that means that they've classified Super Mario Brothers as platform. Okay, so that's what data view is doing. It's literally just that's where you would enter all your data to create a data set like this. Okay, so variable view, you've got all of your variables listed on the left-hand side. Okay, the first question they always ask you with SPSS is what is your unit of analysis? Okay, sometimes this is obvious in the text of the question. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you've got to look at the data set. So your unit of analysis, there's two ways to figure it out. Always look at the very first variable. Do you see it just says name? And the label is game title. Okay, the fact that it says game title already clues you in that this is probably studying games. And then if you look at all the variables, genre of game, year of first release, publisher title, these are all possible characteristics of games. Okay, so that's how you would decipher the units of analysis. Always look at the top row and then have a look at the variables and think, what are they describing? Okay, so you've got your name of the variable, okay? Your label, which just gives you a little bit more information, usually about how that variable was measured. Okay, so particularly if you look here at this one, critic score. Okay, so this is obviously scores that critics gave the game. And if you see it says Metacritic score grade from 10 to 100, see it actually provides information on what was the grading scale, how did it work. And from seeing that it was graded from 10 to 100, that would be an interval variable. Why? Well, because it's not going to be a category, right? The critic score would probably be like 79, and that's a precise number. Why is it not ratio? It's because of zero. If zero cannot even exist as a possibility in the scale, then it cannot be ratio. Okay, so this is interval. On that note, this column at the end here that says measure, okay, you can see nominal scale. It's referring to the level of measurement of the variable. Please, please, please never trust this column in the data set, okay? Because researchers don't bother to enter that data correctly because it doesn't make a difference with the analyses. So when they ask you the question, what is the level of measurement of this variable? Please don't rely on that column. I'd much rather you look at the label and the values. Okay, I'll go over the values now. Yep, we're on time. Cool. Okay, so with values are extremely telling as to what level of measurement you're dealing with. So anytime it says none in the values column, that means it's either interval or ratio, and you'll know which one it is by looking at the label. Okay, so is it measured on a scale from 10 to 100, 1 to 10, or 0 to 10? Okay. Whenever it does have values, so values, let's look at this one. You click on the three dots to investigate. This one is platform holder. Okay. Okay, and you can see these are the various platforms that games are on, and they've each been assigned a number. Okay, the value. So why do we bother to even fill that out? Why do we give Atari the number 1 and Nintendo the number 2? It's not because they belong in any meaningful order, because they clearly don't. This is a nominal variable. It's just that SPSS only understands numbers. So even in data view, when I showed you Super Mario Brothers and the genre, it was entered as a number 4. So if I go back, actually, data view, no, Super Mario Brothers, see genre 4, platform holder 2. Okay, so this is just how SPSS works. It only understands numbers, so you have to assign a number. Okay, so these are clearly nominal variables because no meaningful order. And I created a new variable in this data set because we were going to use it. But basically, I took user score and I created 2 categories for it. Basically, the user scores that are below the median and the user scores that are above the median. And I added my value labels. We'll go through all this later. So if you look at this one, value number 1 is lower than 7.9. Value number 2 is higher than 7.9. but I put lower than before higher than, because we're literally going from lowest to highest. It says my internet connection is unstable. Are you guys still okay? Okay. Okay, so what else do I want to tell you here? So you got your values, that's probably the most important thing. So even when you're creating a new variable, which you're going to do a lot, obviously, it's going to show up down here, right? And the most important thing is when, especially for the SPSS test, is you must always go immediately to fill out the label to just describe it, and make sure that you add values if, if it's necessary. Super important. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of SPSS in terms of the variable view. Now, if we look at our top bar, I know it looks like there's a lot of places where you might be able to click, but actually it's very limited as to where you click. But you're going to be clicking a lot on analyze. Okay, why? Because you're going to be running analyses every time you do a test of significance. Anytime you're trying to investigate any statistical analysis, you're going to click analyze. Okay. The other thing that you will only do in one case is go to graphs, okay? And that's only for a scatter plot. There's no other graph you mess with under graphs. Transform is the place you go to create variables or mess with variables, okay? So whenever it involves messing with a variable, here you go. And then data. And that the only thing you use is this one at the bottom, select cases, when you're going to filter your data to only show you information for a particular category, which we'll go through properly a little bit later. Okay, something else I want to show you with your variables is sometimes the question will just say, look at this variable, run a frequency table just to investigate it. You just want to see the variable. So if, for example, I create a new variable and I want to see, well, actually, no. Let's say I want to filter the data to only show me action games, which I'll do quickly now. Only action games. And then within action, I want to know how many categories are left in another variable. So let's do this first. Let's filter for action, and I will repeat this later. Okay, so data, select cases, if condition is satisfied, and if genre equals 1. And continue. My way. Okay. Okay, so now it's whatever I do, it's only going to show me action games. And so let's see. Let's see, maybe platform holder. Basically, only for action games, how many of these platform holders actually produce action games? So you would run a frequency table. Pretty easy. You go analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. This path is going to make you want to bash your brains out because I'm going to do it a lot. So frequencies. Be careful not to select descriptives. It's always frequencies. Okay, don't mind that. And platform holder. So how many categories are left? 1 second, I was messing with this before, so don't pay attention to any of this. Okay, cool. So you just select the variable that they tell you to work with, and you don't need to press anything for a frequency table. You can just press OK. Okay, and if you look at the platform holders, you can see that all of these platform holders, so these were the original 6, all of them produce action games. Okay. All right. So that's just using a frequency table to basically to investigate a variable. Another thing a frequency table will show you, I don't know if there's a variable that makes sense. Let me see. view sales. Okay, this is not the data set for it, but I'm going to just run one anyway. Actually, let me go back to the output just to give you an idea. 1 sec. Why is my laptop so slow? Okay, I want you to look here at the frequency table. So it doesn't work because this is a nominal variable. But if you were ever asked to find the median based on a frequency table, okay, I don't know if you remember the median, okay, it's the exact middle point in the data, and the data is organized from lowest to highest number. So if it's at the exact middle point, that would mean it's at 50%. Okay, so if you look at the cumulative percent column, okay, you can look down until you get to the first number that's above 50, okay, and that category would be your median. This particularly works for ordinal variables. It obviously doesn't work here because it's nominal. Okay, so but if that question does pop up, just look for the cumulative percent that is the first one above 50. That would be your median category. All right. I think that's all I wanted to show you here for now. That is the basics, and we can go back to our theory. Okay, I'm assuming you guys don't have any questions on that part. All right, the key theory for today, your measures of central tendency and your measures of variability. So I'm not going to go into detail on these, but these are so important for the later weeks. If you're not super clear on these, then the later weeks feel a lot harder to understand. Let's start with your measures of central tendency. So in these SPSS exercises, you always get asked the question, like, what are the relevant measures of central tendency for the variable age? Okay, so what they mean is, can we do the mean, the median, or the mode for that variable? Okay, we know that the mean is just an average, right? So we add up we add up all the scores in the sample and divide by the number of units. Pretty easy. Our median is called the 50th percentile in SPSS. And whenever we work with the median or the quartiles, okay, you automatically know that the data was arranged from lowest score to highest score. Okay, I emphasize this because it's something that was put in, I think, the week 2 assignment, where they didn't tell you to use a quartile, but they basically used all of the language that is associated with quartiles. And one of them is the data is ranged from lowest to highest. Okay, so at the 50th percentile, dead middle point. Okay, and then the last one, the mode. Okay, so your mode is basically usually your category of whatever variable that has the highest frequency. Okay, meaning in this room, like with us, I don't know everyone's nationalities, but if there's an overlapping nationality, that'll probably be the mode. Okay, so literally from mode French, meaning fashion or trend. Why are they called measures of central tendency? Okay, for the obvious reason, they are all trying to describe where the middle of the data is. Okay, so the median is literally, okay, where is the point where 50% of the data lies below it and 50% lies above it? Okay, your measures of variability, very different. So if we can get a sense of where the middle of the data is, okay, that actually tells us nothing about how variable or how dispersed the data is. Okay, I'm going to give you a little riddle, and I want one of you to tell me what it's about. So if you're going on a hiking trip out in the middle of nowhere and you have to cross a river, and you ask me for advice on crossing this river, and I tell you, well, the river is on average 4 feet deep. Why is that not helpful?
Because it doesn't explain how far you have to go to reach the other side.
Well, how about I say, okay, the river is on average 4 feet deep and it's about 5 meters across. Why is it still not helpful?
Maybe because you don't know what the lowest point is. Like you just know the average, but you don't know how deep you could maybe sink in.
Exactly, exactly. So basically, knowing the average doesn't give you any indication of where the shallow areas are, where the deeper areas are. Okay, so you could walk up to a deep area, but you're like, it's cool, it's on average 4 feet deep, and then you drown. It's not ideal. So the the idea behind variability is I want you to picture 5 people in a room and we're measuring everybody's height. That's our variable. And let's say we get an average height of 170 centimeters. Each individual height, let's talk about it. Say I've got 164, 172, 175, 168, right? Do you see that they're not huge differences between these people, right? Maybe within 10 centimeters. And they got an average of 170. Now imagine I go into a different room, different 5 people measuring their height. I could have someone who's 2 meters tall, someone who's 153, someone who's 172, another person who's 187. So now do you see if you put them next to each other, you're going to have all these different heights. I could calculate the average of the second group and get the same average as the first group, 170 centimeters. Okay, so these averages are exactly the same in these two groups, but it tells me absolutely nothing about how diverse the data is. Okay, so I like to use the word diverse just because I find it's easier to work with in my brain. But for stats, they like to say dispersed. How dispersed is the data? So variability literally comes from the word vary or variety. Okay, how much variety is there in your data? If we look at the first measure of variability, the range, okay, so that's a really simple one. But basically, if you think, oh, what is the age range of IPCOM? And you're like, oh, it's between like 17 and 23, whatever it is. That gives you a sense of how dispersed the ages are within IPCOM. Yeah. Your interquartile range, similar. It's not the most useful measure, but you need to know it. And the only thing I really want to emphasize about the interquartile range is just the quartile values. Okay. So quartile comes from the word quarter, meaning it divides the data into 4 equal parts. Okay, so it's literally 25%, 25, 25, 25. When they appear in SPSS, you'll see you get 3 values. So remember, quartiles are 4 groups, but you'll get 3 values. You'll get 25, 50th, and 75th percentile. Okay, don't be fooled. What this means is that group 1, okay, is 0 to 25. Group 2 is 25 to 50. Group 3, 50 to 75. And group 4, 75 to 100. Okay, so when you get a question that speaks about dividing the data into 4 equal groups, and it ranges from lowest to highest, okay, immediately in that language, they're speaking about the quartiles and they want you to use them. Okay. That's the only thing that's really relevant for that in SPSS. They often will ask you to use the quartiles to create a new variable, which I will show you in a little bit. Okay, your third measure of variability is your variance. Okay, so variance is not really something that we interpret directly because there's no standardized way to interpret it, but it starts to matter a lot theory-wise when we move into like your 2-sample t-test and your one-way ANOVA. It's variance is a big part of that, and it's a big part of interpreting the SPSS output. Okay, it's not something that you need to understand per se for the SPSS test. or not understand, but you do need to understand it, but you don't need to interpret it or explain it. Yeah. And then lastly, your standard deviation. So standard deviation is literally just the square root of the variance. Okay. So it's the standardized value that you are always able to interpret. Now, standard deviation is really, really important to understand. Like, what does it mean? What is the standard deviation? I want to go back to the height example. So I'm in my first group and I said the mean is 170. The first person I measure is 163. Okay. Their distance from the mean is 7 centimeters. Okay. Distance deviation, same difference. So that's what deviation is about. Deviation basically means how different are they from the mean. Okay, one sec. Don't show the screen, please. Okay. Okay, so the first person deviated by 7 centimeters. Second person is 172. They deviated by 2 centimeters. Okay. And say you measure these deviations for every single person in the sample. When you create an average out of all the deviations, that is basically what the standard deviation is. It means on average, how much are people deviating from the mean? So what it gives, the sense it gives you is if your mean is in the middle, right? It means are people deviating a lot from the mean, meaning there's more variety, yeah? Or are people deviating less from the mean, meaning they're fairly close to the mean, okay? That is the basic explanation of the standard deviation. Any questions about this stuff? Super. Or are you all good? You seem good. Okay, let me move on. All right, and now that we are good with, hold on, there's something in the chat. Can I repeat the variance, please? Yes, sure. Let me go back. Okay, the variance. So like I said, the variance is not really something that you interpret directly. Okay, it's more theoretically, you need to understand it when we do the two sample t-test and the one-way ANOVA, because variance is involved. But I want you to think of as variance is the main measure of a measure of variability. So the variance tells you how diverse is the sample, how much is it deviating from the mean. The way we interpret that directly is through the standard deviation. That's all you need to know. You good? Cool. Oh, just watching my time. Alrighty, so for the measures of central tendency and variability, they'll ask you what are the relevant measures. Okay, so relevant refers to based on the level of measurement of the variable, what is possible in terms of the measures, right? So if we look at a nominal variable, let's take nationality. So that's measured in categories like South African, Dutch, German, whatever. Can you calculate an average from those categories? Can you say South African plus Dutch plus German divided by 3? No, you can't, because they're not numbers. It's not measured numerically. So for nominal, the only possibility is the mode, because the mode actually allows you to work with a frequency, meaning if I have my group of people and I organize them by nationality, I could go to the Dutch group and say, cool, how many of you are in this group? Oh, we have 3 people in this group. 3 is your frequency, okay? And if, say, like the most popular group is, I don't know, Vietnamese, okay, they have 5 people and that's more than everybody else, then your mode is 5, okay? For your ordinal, okay, a little bit more possibility. So the mode is obviously possible. Your median, okay, if you run a descriptive statistics thing and you click on median for an ordinal variable, it's not going to make much sense. It's going to come back as like 2.3 when your ordinal categories are like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So it's not going to mean anything. In this situation, if you need to find the median for an ordinal variable, look at the frequency table. So just run a plain old frequency table, go into that cumulative percent column and look for the first percent that's above 50. That would be your median category. Okay, and then the range and the interquartile range are possible for ordinal, but only in certain situations, right? So it's only for like numerical categories, like the age categories I mentioned before, like 18 to 25, 25 to 35. And the reason is because the range deals with like minimum and maximum values. So if your first option is 18 to 25, that means that 18 is the minimum, the lowest possible value. And if the categories go up to like 65, then 65 would be your maximum value. It's really unlikely though that you're going to be asked for the range and the interquartile range for an ordinal variable. It's just not that helpful. An interval ratio, okay? I want you to think of interval ratio as like the superior level of measurement. Everything is possible with interval ratio. Okay, so just to look at this question, so what are the relevant measures for the variable age? Okay, I don't want you to get into a habit of thinking age is always a ratio variable. You need to always investigate it. So if it's measured in age categories, it's ordinal. If it's measured as a precise number, it's going to be ratio. Oh, for a second, I thought it wasn't going to show me my stuff. Lord. Okay, so I just want to quickly go over the quartiles. Okay, so if you measure, if you measuring everybody's income, okay, to find your quartiles, SPSS would do this automatically, obviously, but it's always arranged lowest income to highest income. Okay, your Q2 or your 50th percentile is going to be smack dab in the middle. Your 25th percentile is going to be here, and 75th percentile is going to be there. So the four groups are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. If you look at this little output on the left-hand side, okay, this is just important that you can read these pretty comfortably. So this is when you would just run some statistics because you want to see what's going on in the variable. And they'd ask you, okay, what is the group size? Or what is the sample size? Okay, that is always your valid N. Okay, N is your symbol for sample size. So it would be 1,996 people in this sample. Okay, you got your mean, your median, your mode. Okay, you'll notice that the mean, the median, and the mode are all around the same number. Okay, because they should be, because they're all in the center of the data. Okay, your standard deviation is 3.7. That kind of means like on average, people are deviating by 3.7. By the way, this data is not the same data, so don't worry about that. Okay, range, your minimum and maximum. So basically what that one shows you is what is the lowest score that somebody got in this sample. So if we look at the income example, the minimum value would have been 1,200 euros. The maximum would have been 35,000. Okay, so there's a difference between what is the lowest score that someone actually had for a variable versus what is the lowest possible score that you can have. Okay, so make sure to pay attention to language. Language in the questions is really important in stats. Okay, and your 3 percentiles when you look for the quartiles. Right. We are doing okay on time. Okay, going to run through some of the SPSS functions. As you can see, I've put all the steps and I've screenshotted what things should look like. So in that way, you don't need to make notes. But I'll go through the demo, and if you do need me to repeat anything, just let me know. I have already run a frequency table, so if you're good to move on with this, just let me know. I need to show you the measures. Okay, let's do that. If I can please and exit this. Give me a second. My laptop's being funny. Mm. There we go. Okay, when you want to see your measures of central tendency and variability, so you go analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. Right. Oh, I just realized that I filtered the data, so let me unfilter it quickly. Whenever you need to like unfilter the data or reset it, you would just go wherever you were. You can do this for anything you do, and there's always a reset button somewhere. So I'm just going to reset this before I do it. Okay. Yep. Whatever variable you're investigating, let's investigate critic score. Okay. Whenever you want to see your measures of central tendency and variability, you click on statistics. Chita, what's this about?
Oh yeah, it's like a thingy. I just saw it. It's like it kind of helps you also summarize whilst in the meetings. I'm not sure if like that's okay, because like sometimes I need like notes that I follow whilst the person is speaking.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I'm sure it is okay.
Okay.
If it's not okay, I guess I'll take the brunt.
It's okay. It's okay.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. All right, so we're back here. Cool. So everything you would need is here. You got the central tendency, the mean, the median, the mode. Okay, your quartiles, top left-hand corner. Your standard deviation, you can see it's under dispersion because that's the other word they like to use for variability. So your standard deviation, your range if you wish, minimum, maximum. Okay, as much as you'd like. Continue. Now, if you'd like to represent this kind of data with a bar chart, I'll show you in a second. It's going to be easier with a nominal variable though. This is an interval variable. So click OK. All right. And you end up with your statistics box. So this is good to know actually for your tests of significance when you run the output. At the very top, you'll always get a statistics box, like automatically generated. And it'll always give you the mean, the standard deviation, the group size, like all the usuals. So always have a look at your statistics boxes. Just think of them as like describing the variable. All right, and then for the bar chart, you go right back, analyze descriptive statistics frequencies. And we're gonna ditch this one and rather go for something easy like genre. Okay, because genre is a nominal variable, I'm going to get rid of the mean, the median, and all these measures. Lovely, I just want the mode, and I want a chart. So I click on chart, and I click bar chart. You can leave this as frequencies. Okay, that works. Percentages is only really useful for a pie chart. Continue and okay. Okay, so they like to ask you to do your bar chart and then interpret the bar chart. Okay, so basically looking at this, immediately you can see what the mode is. Can anyone tell me what the mode is?
Action.
Action, yeah. Basically in a bar chart, the highest bar is the mode. Okay, but just looking at all the different bars, another way you could interpret, because there's not a lot to interpret, right? All you can see is which are the most popular and the least popular categories. So you can see that adventure, puzzle, strategy, okay, those are the lowest scoring games. And the highest scoring games are action, shooter, and sports. Okay, there's not much more to interpret from this level of analysis. Okay. Are we good with all that? Pretty straightforward. Okay, guys, that's the measures of central tendency. Now, week 2, we look at Pearson's R. Let's go. Okay, so Pearson's R, I'm so relieved that I don't have to go through the formula with you guys. It's a brutal formula. But what you got to remember about Pearson's R is that it is about a relationship between two variables. So it's bivariate. Okay. Keywords are associated with Pearson's R are relationship, correlation, and association. Okay. Now, when you're looking at questions and knowing what you're going to do with them, okay, keywords are going to make a huge difference. So even if you see the word relationship, Pearson's R should already be an option in your mind. Okay. But Pearson's R is not the only thing in the course that uses the word relationship. So you need to see what is the level of measurement of the variables, right? Pearson's R involves pretty hefty formula. It requires the variables to be interval ratio. Okay. And Pearson's R is not a test of significance, which means in other parts of the question, you're not going to find things like formulate hypotheses and what is this test of significance. Okay, so it's still very much a descriptive statistic. Okay. Okay, for SPSS, you could be asked to run a Pearson's R analysis and interpret the R value in terms of strength and direction. Okay, you can be asked to run a scatter plot and estimate Pearson's R based on the pattern of the dots. Okay, and once you have run your scatter plot, you might be asked to add a regression line to your output. So Pearson's R is always going to be a value between -1 and +1. And what that means is that it's standardized and it's really easy to interpret. So the two things that you look at, strength and direction. Direction is the simplest. Is it a positive or is it a negative number? Okay, literally, then you know the direction. For strength, you need to study these categories, these strength categories. So even if it's a negative Pearson's R, you treat the number as the absolute value. So if it's -0.5, you only look at 0.5 to assess its strength. And 0.5 would fall within the moderate correlation category. This is just something you have to study. Okay, in the question, when they ask you to run a scatter plot and make an estimate based on the scatter plot alone, they are not expecting you to guess the precise Pearson's R because that's ridiculous, first of all. And second of all, if you guess that it has moderate strength, but it actually has it's actually strong, okay, because these two categories are next to each other, okay, they could overlap, they'll still give you the marks. If you say it's weak and it's actually strong, that is what indicates to them that you don't have a good sense of how strength looks on a scatter plot. Okay, any questions about this so far? Cool. Okay, let's do a little Pearson's R demo. See if I can get out. Oh, there we go. Okay, lovely. Okay, so of these variables, which two, and this another possible question, they might ask you to just look at the data, like the data set, and be like, pick two variables that you think would be correlated. Okay, what do they mean? Well, you want to pick two variables that you know are going to affect each other. Okay, so a pretty obvious one would be, would user score, like user reviews, have an effect on global sales? Probably. They'd probably be related, right? Before people buy games, they would go and look at the user reviews. So we're going to pick those two. Okay, analyze, correlate, bivariate. Okay, you throw in your two variables. At this stage, it doesn't really matter what order you put them in. I know that one of them is an independent and the other one's a dependent, but they don't separate it in this analysis. So we're going to do global sales and user score. Lovely. Okay, there's nothing else you have to click on. It's all done for you. Pearson is already selected, and that's what you want. And you can just click OK. Right, and you'll end up with a little box that says correlations. Okay. So if you look on the left-hand side, you can see both the variables that you put in there listed. So your variables are always visible in your output. Okay. So here's global sales. So the first box is when global sales. See, if you look here, Pearson correlation, that's going to be your Pearson's R. Do you see that here is a perfect 1? Okay, that's because it's showing the correlation between global sales and global sales. It's the same variable. Of course, it's a perfect score. So what you're interested in is this 0.029. Okay, so that's the global sales correlation with user score. Okay, how do you interpret this? Well, it's a positive number, so the direction is positive. In terms of the strength categories it fits into, it's pretty weak. It's just below the threshold to get into moderate. So you would interpret this one as a positive, weak relationship between global sales and user score. Okay, is interpreting Pearson's R clear from the output? The rest of it literally doesn't matter. You can see that this is literally just a repetition of the same numbers. All right, what's up next? Okay, running a scatter plot and interpreting. Let's do it. We're going to use the same variables, I think. Okay. For running a scatter plot, this is the only time you go into graphs. At the top, graphs, go to scatter, dot. Simple scatter is already selected, but you can reselect it if you want. And define. Okay, now you can see your X and Y variables need to be defined. So you need to actually decide which one's independent and which one's dependent. So how do you do that? We're working with user score and global sales. Always ask yourself this question. This is how you differentiate. Can the user score have an impact on global sales? Or can global sales have an impact on the user score? Okay, whichever variable impacts the other, okay, that is always your independent variable. Okay, so in this case, user score is impacting global sales. So user score is your X variable. By the way, if it in SPSS, it always pops up with the label, the variable label. If you want to only see the variable name, just right click and you can say display variable names. And then it changes and it's much easier. Okay, user score is your X variable and global sales is your Y variable. And that's it. Enter the variables and you're done. Okay, strange looking graph. Okay, it's a bit of a cheat code actually that we have already done the Pearson's R analysis. You know, I'm going to rather do a scatter plot with different variables so that we don't know. So that you guys can assess the scatter plot yourselves. So instead of user score, I'm going to do critic score as my X variable. And instead of global sales, I think I'm going to do EU sales for funsies. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, very similar graph. Okay, can one of you offer a simple explanation as to how you go about deciding on the direction and the strength of a scatter plot?
So my idea would be to like start if it's positive or negative, and since it's not like it's increasing, I would say it's positive.
Mm-hmm.
Then weak, because you can see if I think it was the critic score, right? If the
Mm-hmm.
critic score like gets higher, the sales don't really go up that much.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So you are very much correct. And a simpler way, just in case when you say, oh, it's obviously increasing, and somebody's like, well, how do you know that? When you read a scatter plot, you're always reading it from left to right. So if you start in the bottom left-hand corner and you move towards the right, you can see the dots are slightly starting to rise. Okay, so when it's rising like that, that would be a positive Pearson's R. If you start on the left-hand side and it starts higher and it goes down, that would be a negative Pearson's R. And quite right, if you were to draw a regression line through the center of this data, it would only have a very slight incline. Okay, if it's flat, like completely flat line going across, that indicates a Pearson's R of 0. Okay, and 0 is obviously like the weakest it could possibly be. So basically, you estimate strength looking at how steep the line is. Okay, but you also get a sense based on how close the dots are together. This is an exception because the dots are very close together, but then the line itself is not steep at all. So it's still close to 0. Okay. Ideally, you want a fairly steep line where all the dots are clearly moving in the same direction, right? They have the same kind of pattern. Is that clear? I think we're good. Cool. Now, you might be asked to add a regression line to actually fit this data. Okay, the way you do that is you run the scatter plot and you need to double click on this output. So double click and your chart editor is going to pop up like this. So there's a tiny little icon up here, okay? And it says add fit line at total. And you can see it's literally a regression line with a bunch of little dots behind it. You click on that. And a properties box pops up. And you just need to check that linear is selected. It is actually always selected. So if you forget to check, it's not the end of the world, but it should be linear. And then you can close this and you can close the chart editor as well. And you should have now a regression line through your data. There it is. You can barely see it with all these dots, but it's there. Cool. I think that might be us for Pearson's R. Okay. Yes, we looked at this. Let's actually. Okay. So looking at these two. Okay, we're looking at it from left to right. The dots are clearly moving in an upwards fashion, so it's clearly positive. In terms of strength, right? This one might be difficult because some of the dots are a little bit spread apart, so you might need to rely more on the steepness of the line. So if you put a regression line running through it, and you can see that's a pretty decent regression line, but I wouldn't say it's steep either. So I would guess this, if it was me in a test, I would say this is either moderate or strong in terms of strength, okay? Then I ran the actual Pearson's R for this, and it was 0.435. So it falls into moderate. But again, if you said strong for this one, like because they're neighboring categories, you'll probably still get points for it. Okay. Okay, guys, good time to take a break. It says you can take 10. 10 is a good amount, actually, yeah. Let's take 10. I will see you back here. Let's take 14. Why not? I'll see you back here at, sorry, I'm doing time zones, 2:25. Okay. Are we all back? Okay, I'm gonna get going. Alrighty, so this is gonna drive you a bit mad tomorrow, but there are 3 questions that you always need to ask yourself when you're reading a question and you're not sure what exactly you're supposed to do with it. Okay. The first question that's relevant is always how many variables are involved in the analysis. Okay. So this does not include, sometimes there's an instruction before the actual question that says, filter the data or do it only for Sony platforms or whatever. I'm not talking about that variable. Only the variables involved in the analysis. So how many variables? The second thing is what is the level of measurement of those variables? Okay, interval ratio or nominal ordinal. Notice that I always group those together, like nominal ordinal, they're measured in categories, interval ratio measured as numbers. And then the third thing is keywords. Okay, I promise you that every single calculation analysis you do in this course is unique, every single one. There are always keywords and things that you can use to narrow it down. Okay, why I'm giving you this whole spiel is that we're moving into week 3, so we're looking at crosstabs. Okay, and crosstabs is about a relationship between 2 variables. Okay, doesn't that sound exactly the same as Pearson's R? Okay, but it's not, and how do we know that it's not? Because crosstabs only deals with nominal ordinal variables, whereas Pearson's R only deals with interval ratio variables. Okay. So when you have a look at a crosstabs, okay, in SPSS, okay, when you run it, I'll show you how to do it now, but the first thing that'll pop up is this, and you can see what your variables are. Okay, so I've circled them here. In a crosstabs, okay, your columns, okay, your column is always going to be your independent variable. Okay, that never changes. Okay, so whatever is listed here as the variable, that's your independent. And whatever is listed here as the rows, you can see these are the 2 categories of this variable that I created. That will be your dependent variable. That never changes. Okay. They love to ask you in a crosstabs question, what are the relevant percentages in a crosstab? The relevant percentages are always the column percentages. Okay, that's what the answer that they're looking for. What does that mean, the column percentages? Means if we look at Nintendo, okay, this very first column. So this number is 230. That's hiding behind the line. So what that means is that 230 games, right? Because that's the unit of analysis. Okay, 230 games, Nintendo games, scored lower than 81. Okay, 87 Nintendo games scored higher than 81 on the critic score scale. Okay, so we want to know, okay, percentage-wise, what percent of Nintendo games scored lower than 81 and what percent scored higher? So to calculate these percentages, which we're not going to talk about much for the SPSS test, obviously, but how they get 72.6% is they look at 230 out of the total Nintendo games, 317. Okay, they go 230 divided by 317, multiplied by 100, and you get your percentage. So that means that 72.6% of Nintendo games scores lower than 81, and 81 is the median. Okay, so it's in the bottom 50% of scoring. What that tells us, if you interpret that number, is that Nintendo games are not doing so well. Okay, because if majority of their games are scoring below the median, okay, it's not looking good for them. Okay. And you can see that for Sega, 0% score lower than the median and 100% score higher than the median. How is that possible? Like, that's insane. 0 and 100. Well, if you look at how many Sega games there are in total, there's only 2. Okay, it's not that hard. 0 happened to score lower than 81. Okay, this is why percentages matter more than the frequencies do. Because for Nintendo, they measured 317 games. For Sega, they only measured 2. For PC, they only measured 48. So because you have these different sample sizes of the different platforms, you have to work with percent and not frequency. Okay. But anyway, that was a whole spiel to when you produce this output, how do you interpret it? Okay, so when you calculate percentages, it's going in columns. When you're interpreting, you're looking across. Okay, so you're literally moving from Nintendo to Sega to PC because you're kind of comparing them, right? Okay, so like we said, Nintendo is scoring pretty low for critics. Okay, I would maybe go and look at the others and be like, the most striking ones are probably the 0%. Okay, but because there's only 2 games, not that interesting. Maybe the 50% is the total. Okay, maybe the 45%. Okay, on Sony. You could see that Sony is kind of evenly split, 45.5, 54.5. Okay, so that means that Sony is doing better than Nintendo because less than 50% is scoring lower than the median. More than 50% is scoring higher than the median. Okay, if you were to look only at the high scorers, so focus on this higher score than 81, the high scorers are, okay, Sega obviously, but more interestingly, PC. 70.8% score higher than the median. Okay, so they're doing really well. When you're looking at all these different percentages, you don't need to interpret every single one of them. Okay, what you want to get a sense of is which ones are strikingly different from one another, right? So you want to look at, okay, which game is the lowest performer? Which one's the highest performer? So I would, in this case, probably point out that Nintendo games score low, PC games score exceptionally high. Okay. And then I would say because Sony and Microsoft, they're both fairly evenly split, right? So you could also make a point about that. That Sony and Microsoft are kind of half and half. Okay. But listen, you're not going to get any kind of complexity in your conclusion for a crosstabs. It's a descriptive statistic, like it's not a test of significance. So you basically you do it kind of intuitively. Okay, what strikes you about this result? Is anyone confused about crosstabs or how to interpret? No? Okay. Let me check the chat. Oh, chat's all clear. Cool. So, do a quick little demo. If it'll let me out. One sec. Okay, so to get your crosstabs, you go, surprise, analyze, descriptive statistics. Okay, but instead of frequencies, now you go to crosstabs. Okay. Okay, I made a variable special for this, user score categories. Okay, so we're gonna look at game genre, okay, and see if that has a relationship with user score, okay, user score categories or tiers. Okay, which one do you think is the independent? Which one's the dependent between genre of game and user score?
I think the genre is probably independent.
Tell me why.
Because the user score would be depending on a genre. So like if people like the genre more, then the score could be higher or lower. So
yeah, exactly. So your most popular genres are very likely to get higher user scores. Okay, so what that means is that we're putting genre in the column and we're putting our user score tiers in the row. Okay, so just so you know, I made this variable user score tiers. It differentiates between all the scores that are below the median and above the median, just so that we can have a ordinal variable to work with. Okay, once you've entered your variables, there is something else you got to do. You click on cells. Okay, and because your percentages that you want are column percentages, you go down here, percentages, and click on column. And that's it. Continue, and okay. And you get your crosstabs. So if we're going to interpret this one a little, does anyone want to give it a try? Make it bigger. Okay, from the ones that you can see on the screen, which ones strike you the most?
I think the adventure one,
Okay.
or even shooter and sport. No, misc, whatever that would be.
Oh, yeah, miscellaneous.
Yeah, because it has like the highest difference. Because there's 67% for lower than 79 than 79, and the lowest percent per higher. So probably those are the games that were least liked, while we probably could find the lowest percentage in the first part, which would be role playing, and they have the highest percent of the higher than 7.9. So we could say that the misc thing is the least liked genre, and the role playing is the most liked genre.
Yes, exactly. So if you can even, to make it really simple, you can pick one of these rows. So pick lower or pick higher. If we're, for example, picking the higher than 7.9, so we're looking at popularity, then you're looking for which of these genres has the highest percentage in the higher scoring row. And like you said, role playing, 64.8% is the highest percentage. That means role playing is the most popular genre here. And then, like you said, miscellaneous, I think, has the lowest percent for that row, 33%. Okay. And then if you scan your eye over the others, you can see that there are a lot of evenly split genres that don't warrant making too much of an analysis. You could, if there's a lot of genres, you can pick another one and be like, cool, if role playing is the most popular, which is the second most popular? Okay, things like that. But they're really not expecting an essay from you when you're interpreting crosstabs. Okay. What else have they got to look at? All right. So how are we doing on time? 20 minutes-ish. Okay. So now that we've actually dealt with all of the descriptive statistics, so just to remind you that week 1, 2, and 3, they all deal with descriptive statistics, meaning none of those calculations or analyses can be used to generalize about a population. Okay, so when we do real research, we can never send a survey out to the entire population we're studying, because most likely our population is huge. Like, say you're studying German people, you're not gonna, survey, 90 million Germans. So you always take a sample, and then you can run your measures of central tendency and your measures of variability on the sample, but you can never say something broad and general about Germans based on that. Okay, for that, you need your inferential statistics, your tests of significance, which start in week 4. Okay, cool. Now that spiel's over, yeah, those are your descriptive stats. And now we can get to the more general SPSS functions that appear in your assignments. Okay, so the one I showed you earlier, I'll just repeat it, is when you're filtering the data, so it analyzes only a specific category. Let me get it nice and big. Okay. So the way this appears in the question is usually it's right before an analysis, because obviously it affects the analysis. The instruction or the question will say something like only include cases that fall under lifestyle in the variable theme. So you would need to go to your variable view, look at the value labels for theme, and see what number lifestyle corresponds to. Say it's value number 2. Then you can go and filter the data so it only shows you lifestyle themes. They can also say you want to analyze the relationship between video game critic score and global sales. So it's indicating, oh, you do want to look at a Pearson's R, maybe, but only for games released on the Sony platform. Okay, and for that, you need to go to platform holder. So when you see this text and I ask you how many variables are involved in the analysis, you can see that there are 3 variables in the text, yeah? But there's only 2 variables involved in the actual analysis. Filtering the data for only Sony games, that's a separate function, okay? And this is what it would look like in SPSS. So a little demonstration. Let's do it for games again. Okay, so the only time you ever look at data, and you go right to the bottom to select cases. Okay, you click on if condition is satisfied, if. Okay, you select the variable that's going to help you filter the data. So if you only want to do it for Sony, which is the platform holder platform variable, sorry, you would say you can double click on it or just use the arrow. Platform holder equals, let's say Sony aligns with the value number 6. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. You do need to check it yourself before you do this, obviously, but this is just a demo. Okay, so platform holder equals 6. You're telling it only look at Sony, continue, and okay. Okay, now whatever you do from here on out, any analysis, it's only going to do for Sony. You can see when there's a filter on your data because at the bottom of your variable view, it says filter. Okay, so something that's really important in your SPSS test is that you're probably going to be doing this a lot. Like you're going to be working with a data file and they're going to be like, cool, do it for Sony, do it for Microsoft. Oh, change this. Oh, use a different variable, whatever. Make sure that your filters are off when they need to be. So you do a filter, you do the relevant analyses, and then go and reset it. So I told you for resetting, it's always a button that's just there. So data, select cases, and you can just click on reset and OK, and it'll remove your filter, and you can start from scratch. Okay, sometimes it takes a while for this to disappear, but don't worry, it's been done. Okay, all clear on that. Okay. Oh, okay. This is one of the ways that they might ask you to use your filter. All right, so we're still looking at filtering the data, especially in like the week 1 assignment, but you need to pay attention because it can look like a 2-sample t-test, is they basically say to you, okay, you know, have a look at the descriptive statistics for action games and then compare them with the descriptive statistics of adventure games. So why I say it could look like a 2-sample t-test is that that test is about a comparison between groups. Okay, but what's key is that that is a test of significance, which means it involves hypotheses, a p-value, all sorts of other things. When they're literally just asking you to like compare the descriptives, what is the group sizes, what is the age range, what is the mean, and just interpret, this is what they want you to do. Okay. So if we're looking at these 2 side by side, right? Any interpretation that comes from this is really simple. You're not making big statements here. So if you look at the mean, so your variable here is global sales. Okay, so how well is this game performing? Your average global sales for action is 2.5 million, yeah, or 2.59 million. For adventure, it's 2.3. So their average, their means are actually really close. Okay, on average, these two types of games perform really well and very similarly. Their medians are even more similar. Okay, mode, also very similar. What should strike you in interpretation is looking at the minimum maximum, meaning what was the lowest global sales number for each of them? Very similar, 1 million. Okay, but if you look at the maximum, 21 million versus 11 million. Okay, so basically looking through this, your conclusion would be, oh, they're actually very evenly matched on their average, on their median, on their mode, and even on their minimum. But action games, like some action games, have sold way more than adventure games have. So it's saying there's a few action games that just perform extremely well compared to adventure games. Okay. And that's pretty much it that you would interpret from that. Something that might also be important is to notice that for action games, they sampled 402 action games when they only sampled 38 adventure games. Okay, even that fact indicates that there are way more action games available to sample than there are adventure games. But that's not always the case. That's not really a conclusion you can make. It's just something to notice. Okay, this is one of the functions that really trips people up. Okay, you're creating a new variable where you take a variable that's currently interval ratio and you want to transform it into an ordinal variable. Okay, so they present you with something like, I think in week 2, it was like use the quartile values to create a variable with 4 equal categories, right? Or they'll say, find out the median of this variable and create a new variable that distinguishes between 2 categories, one below the median and one above the median. Okay, so what I want you to notice is that they're asking you to take something that's measured in a precise number and create ordinal categories from it. Okay, the instruction can look a little different, okay, but whenever you're doing that, it's the same SPSS function. Okay, so first scenario.
Could you repeat what the question would sound like, or like?
Sure, I actually think I have it on the next slide written out, which is maybe a bit more useful. Okay. So this is one of the options, right? Find the median value of this variable and then create a new variable that distinguishes between the critic scores above and below that value. Okay. So that's first option. Second option, which is probably on the next slide. Yes. Is they will actually be very precise about what their categories need to be, right? So they'll say, create a new variable that distinguishes between 4 different critic score categories, and then they'll provide you with the numbers of those categories. So 0 to 15, and what's represented here is 15 to 60 as my creation of one of the categories. So I believe they have an example like this in your week 6 assignment, which I want you to do in the practice time. And then the last option, which I'm not sure if I put on these slides, did I? No, I didn't. Okay. Is very similar to this median question. Instead of saying find the median, they'll say find the quartile values and use them to create a new variable that distinguishes between 4 equal groups that range from lowest to highest score. Okay, we can actually look at your week 2 thing just so I can show you the language that they use. But at the end of the day, they're still asking you to create a new variable that is measured in categories when the original variable was interval or ratio. Okay. All right, let's do this demo. So I'll do all 3 situations, okay, based on those examples in there. So this one was the median, okay. So let's pick a variable, an interval ratio variable here, and then pretend like we were told to find the median and then use the median as the boundary for two categories. Which one have we not used? Let's use Japan sales. So the first thing you need to do is find your median, which means run a descriptive. So go analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. No, not genre. We want Japan sales and the statistic we're interested in. I'm going to do the quartiles as well, just to show you for the next one. So median and the quartiles. Continue and okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, those are some strange numbers. Okay, so our median is 0.03. So that's what we're going to be using to create our two categories. So, ready, whenever you're doing this. You go into transform, recode into different variables. Okay, why not recode into same variables? Because same variable means you're going to literally take the variable and you're going to change that variable, which means you're going to alter the existing variable. You don't want to do that. You want to create a new one that's just based on the old one. Okay, so recode into different variables. Don't mind that. We want sales in Japan. Okay, you click on the variable that you're changing. You click on that so it becomes blue. And you need to give it a name. Okay, the name doesn't matter so much, but I'm going to call it Japan sales groups. Okay, when you're creating a new variable name in SPSS, make sure that your name doesn't have any spaces, okay, because it'll give you an error. So you're only allowed to use these underscores, or you can just do one word, okay? And then once you've done your name, you can click change, and you can see now it's from old variable to new one. Then you click on old and new values. Okay, and this should pop up. So you've got options here. The ones we're interested in for this kind of function is the range, these ranges, okay? So if we only have one boundary, like the median, okay, so basically we just want everything below that number and everything above that number, then we just go straight to range lowest through value. That means everything that's less than that. And our median value is what we put here, which is 0. Oh no, was it 0.3? Or the 0.03? This always happens to me. Hold on. Oh, 0.03, okay. Okay, so 0.03. Once you've added in your boundary, then you go onto the right-hand side and you give it a new value.
Can I ask
sorry,
a-
this should be reset. I'm so sorry. I'll come back. Reset this, please. Yes, ask a question while I'm fixing this.
Why is it lowest and not the highest?
You're going to do both.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry
Thank
about that. Okay, let's hope it's all reset. Lovely, okay. So you start with range lowest, because you remember you're going to have to click on stuff for every category that's you're going to create. So this is the first category, 0.03, and then you give it the value 1. It's SPSS likes numbers, and you click on add. Then, because you want now the second category is everything that's above that value, so you go range value through highest. Easy. Put the exact same value. Okay. SPSS understands, okay, that even though you've put in like the exact same value, all right, what the first category is going to be everything up until the tiniest number before that number. Okay. So just put the median in as it is. And value number 2, that's your second category, and you add it. Now you've got your 2 categories. And you click continue. And okay,
Sorry,
and that's it.
could you explain the meaning of lowest through and highest through? Because I don't really get it. Like if we are using the lowest through, so it means that all of the values would be lower than the value that we're using, or because I don't see like the logic behind that. Why are we doing that?
No, it's pretty much just because it's weird language, right? So yeah, exactly what you said. It means the lowest score. What did we use? Japan sales, right? The lowest possible sales score, all the way up until the median score, which was 0.03 million. Okay. And then value through highest means the median all the way up until the absolute highest sales score that existed in this sample. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but we are doing that only if we need like two groups, because I remember that when we needed like 3, 4, 5, etc., we were starting with that and then using this range thing, and we were
Yes.
computing the range ourselves.
Yeah,
We
correct.
always start with the lowest through, right?
Yes, always.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll show you those examples now. Okay, so this example is specifically when you have only one number that differentiates between category 1 and category 2, usually the median, because that's how they like to ask the question. Okay, then click on to continue and OK. And if they don't have another instruction in the question, don't forget that you always, always, always need to go find your new variable at the bottom here. You need to give it a label, okay? And most importantly, your values. Because now you've got a categorical variable, you've got an ordinal variable, you need to give it values. And you're just repeating basically what you did. So value 1 was lower than 0.03 million units. I like to be a little bit more descriptive in the value labels, just because it makes it easier to read if you run another analysis. You know what's going on. Okay. And then you click OK, and now you have your value labels. Why the value labels are super important is that if you run, like, say if you follow up this create a new variable with an analysis, when you interpret that output, you need to be able to see clearly what your categories were. Alrighty, so that's first example. Second one, let's go back to the output, because I also asked for the quartile values. All right, so interesting. Our Q1 is 0.0000. That means that the game that sold the least was really low. But anyway, so our 25th percentile is 0.000, and that means that the first group that we're going to create from these quartiles is 0 to 25%, which means that's everything less than 0.0000. Okay. Then the next category up is going to be between 25 and 50%. So it's going to be between all the zeros and 0.03. Group 3 going to be between 50 and 75, which is between 0.03 and 0.35. Then the final fourth group is going to be 75 to 100%, and that's everything that's above 0.35. Okay, let me just memorize this quickly. Cool. Not that hard. Okay, and we do the same thing. So I did reset the data, it's just in case. Did I? I did reset it. Lovely. Okay. What was I doing? All right. Okay. Transform. Back to transform. Recode into different variables. Okay. We're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to delete. I'm going to create a new one. Maybe I'll groups, and I'll make it quartiles. Change. All the new ones. All right, so I'm just going to remove these, remove, and we're going to do it again. Okay, so now we have more values to work with. So you always start with range lowest through value in this case, okay, because we're working from 0 to 25%, the first quartile. And then the 25% boundary was all the zeros. So 0.000. I don't know how anything's going to be lower than that, but it can be. And that's the first group. Second group, now we have specified boundaries, right? Between 25 and 50% was all the zeros, between all the zeros and 0.03. So in that case, you click on range so that you can put in two different numbers. So 0.0000 all the way to 0.03. Second group. Add. Okay, range again, and this is going to be 0.03 all the way to 0.35. That's your third group. Okay, and then for the final one, it's everything that's higher than 0.035 because it's 75 to 100%. So value through highest. And you put in 0.35. 4 groups. Add, and you're done. Is this clear for everybody? Cool. And continue, and okay. And of course, you need to go and sort out your value labels when you're done. Okay, there was one more. So I said, oh, wait, so I showed you using the median, using the quartiles. Sometimes they'll just give it to you. They'll just be like, yeah, these are your boundaries. Please put them in. I'm actually going to pull up your week 6 exercise just to show you. Yeah, 4A. Create a new variable, age groups, which distinguishes between 6 different age categories of the original variable age. So if you go and investigate age, I'm sure you'll find that that was an interval ratio variable. And now you're trying to create age categories, make it an ordinal variable. And as you can see, they are very specific about what they want your categories to look like. So if they say 25 and younger, that means range lowest through 25. Yeah. And for 6, similarly, older than 70 means range value through highest. So 70 through highest. Okay. And then for all these categories in between, you're going to use that range with the 2 open text boxes to actually put in the precise values. So 25 and 30 and 30 and 45 and so on. Okay. Those are the 3 examples that I've seen in this entire course for this SPSS function. All right. That's one of the things you're going to do now in your practice time. There you go. See if I missed anything. Don't think so. Yes. Okay. So, like I said earlier, I know that some of you will have predetermined questions in mind for this training. You're welcome to shoot now if you have a question about any of this stuff. Obviously, tomorrow's training is going to focus on all the tests of significance. We're going to focus heavily on SPSS interpretation and question identification. So I want you to be really confident reading the question and knowing immediately what analysis you need to run, because it's all good and well knowing, oh yeah, I just click this for a chi-square. But if you're reading a question and you don't know it's a chi-square, then you're screwed. So that's what we're going to focus on tomorrow. Any questions? You guys good? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know.
I just wanted to ask.
Gotcha.
I wanted to ask. For this session, you said you're gonna share the slides, and is the recording gonna be shared with us of the lesson to go over again, or no?
I believe it will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm a brand new trainer with Grade Guru, so I'm still getting familiar with all their processes. But you'll definitely get these slides, and it is being recorded, so I think you will get the recording. Yeah. So there's no questions for now. Then we're gonna. Oh yeah. Sorry, you got another one?
I just have also like a more general one, or like an organizational one, and I cannot imagine how this SPSS exam looks like. Like, what is it? Do I have to do like screenshots from my output and put it in ANS, or like what do I have to do?
I haven't been in IBCOM, and I know that they've changed a few things in terms of how they do exams and stuff. But yes, it's going to be very similar to how you would do your course stuff. So you are going to have to screenshot outputs, I think, or rather, there's a possibility they will just need you to save the output file and submit the output file. Yeah, I'm not sure which they'll do, to be honest, but be prepared to screenshot or to submit your output file because they have to see that you did it correctly. So those are the only two options, really. They are not going to be able to see if you have to click 5 times to figure out where something is, so if you end up having to play around before you find the correct thing, they're not going to see that. They're only going to see if you produce the correct output, then you've done it correctly. And then they'll ask you to interpret it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Do you think they will show us how to like save the file, like the SPSS file?
Oh, they have to give you instructions for an exam type situation for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And also, if they don't give you explicit instructions, there are always invigilators around, and just get to your test venue. And if you're confused, just go straight to a person and be like, hey, I have no idea how this is going to work. Please explain. So yeah. I wish I could help more, but I know that for a fact that they've changed their way of doing things since I was there. I also, this might shock you, I did my first year in 2020 during the pandemic. I actually did it all online from South Africa, so it was a completely different examination system. Yeah. Okay, if there are no questions for now, no other ones, then we can move into our practice time. Yes. So the ones that are highlighted in yellow, those are the ones that I really would like you to do while you're here. I don't expect that you will be able to get through all of it, and I don't need you to submit anything, like submit a document with outputs and stuff. I actually just want you to go through it, do the questions, and get a sense of how you feel, how confident you feel doing it. Okay. Because like say, for example, you select cases and you forget to reset, and so you produce the wrong output. That's not something that I can help you with because it's just a mistake that you can possibly make and you just need to try not to. I want you to focus on how does it feel reading the question, doing the SPSS function, reading the output, and if you get stuck or confused, then feel free to unmute yourself. Okay. Did you guys get my announcement, by the way?
Which one?
I sent out an announcement on the Grade Guru platform, basically just saying that for this practice time, I need you to have SPSS on your laptops, and I need you to have all your assignments and data files ready to be able to do this. Is there anyone who does not have SPSS on their laptop right now? No. Okay, that's good. That's very good news. Yeah, because I'm not going to share it all on my screen because I want you to, even if you pick and choose which questions you want to do, I'm very happy with that. Okay, this is just your time to go through the questions as you would preparing for the exam, but you're going to have me present in case you get stuck. All right.
Okay, thank you.
But before we go into this quiet time, so this is my first training with Grade Guru. Obviously, I've been tutoring for like years, but I generally do one-on-one. I don't do a lot of groups. So I wanted to get a sense from you guys how helpful this was. I mean, I know we haven't finished the course content, but yeah. Anyone want to weigh in? Oh, in the chat. Lovely. Okay. Not bad. I'm concerned about the 6.5. Is that a 6.5 because we haven't done the rest of the content, or is it a 6.5 based on what we've talked about so far?
I think that based on what we've talked about, because I still like I listen to everything, but I still cannot feel that, like if I open the assignment, which I will right now, like that I will be able to actually do all of it.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like it's there, but I'm not quite sure that I can use it yet. Just gotta practice, bro.
Yeah, you do just got to practice. Okay, so what I'm gonna ask you to do is just give it a go. Give some of these questions a go, and literally just unmute yourself or put a question in the chat if you get stuck. Um, okay, is that okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. All right, guys, get familiar with this. If you're gonna do anything before your SPSS test, just play around with the software, please.
Oh, sorry. I don't even know what I drew on my. Can you guys see what I drew?
Yeah.
I was touching my screen. I don't know why I did that. But anyway. I wanted to say, unfortunately, I have to leave. I have some work stuff to do for Grade Guru as well. So thank you so much. I will also tell Bent it was such a good session. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Chitsa. Just let me know, maybe tomorrow if you had any trouble with any of this.
Okay. Thank you so much. I will definitely.
All right. Awesome. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. The question, I think I'd like you to do that question 4A in week 6. Because that one is annoying and it feels like a drill to get it right. To do that. I am going to turn off my camera and my audio, but I'm here. Okay, so you can still unmute and ask a question if you want to.
Once we finish the question 4A of week 6, do you want us to do the rest or wait until we correct this one?
Like you to do the rest unless you felt like you had an issue with question 4A. Did you have an issue?
No, I think it was fine, but at the end we'll see the results in case we did it wrong.
So I don't have the solution for you, but I can go and do it real quick.
Whatever you prefer.
I'll go do it.
Thank you.
Any of you guys know why Zoom would not be letting me escape, like come out of this document? For some reason, it's not even letting me stop sharing. Oh no, there it is. Okay, I can stop sharing. All right, I'll reshare in a second. Would you like me to show you now if you've done question 4A from week 6?
Yeah, if it's possible.
Sure. Okay, you should be able to see SPSS. Yeah. Okay, so based on these age categories, right? And I took a screenshot for you so you can see what it should look like. Okay, when you went into Recode in this section, this is what it should have looked like when you put in all the data. Yeah. And then you should have, here we go, gone and found your new variable, age groups at the bottom. I gave it a little label and then given it value labels. So you basically just repeat the process for the description. And then if you would like to see if you've done it correctly, it should appear in a frequency table when you run a frequency. So you can always go analyze descriptives frequencies and pop your new variable in there and just run a frequency. And your age categories should pop up. Don't mind that. There you go, age groups. And you've got all your categories. Yeah?
Yes, super. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other solutions that you would like me to do? Because I was going to talk through them, but I can always show you if you need.
You mean of the other exercises or this one?
No, of the other questions.
I'm still doing the question 3 of week 3, but I don't know what the rest is.
Okay,
Other
perfect.
do.
What I would like you guys to do is I highlighted week 1, but week 1 is the most basic, right? So I'd like you to focus on week 3, question 3, week 2, question 2. Okay, I want to go through that with you now. I want to read the question with you because there's something I want to really highlight. Week 2, question 2. Sorry to interrupt you while you're busy, but here we go. No. Okay, here we go. Okay, so if you look at question 2B, it asks you to calculate your 3 quartile values, which is pretty easy. You just go into your descriptives and your statistics, select quartiles. It's C. I want you to pay attention to the language. So based on the telephone lines variable, so telephone lines is measured as number of telephone lines per 100 people. That would be visible in the label, the variable label. Create a new variable which distinguishes between 4 groups of countries. Countries is the unit of analysis in this particular data set. Okay, 4 groups of countries ranging from lowest to highest landline connectivity. Okay, so it's basically saying organize the data from lowest to highest. Create the new variable in such a manner that you have an approximately equal number of countries in each of the 4 groups. Well, that describes the quartiles. Okay, the quartiles are 4 equal groups. Okay, so that is by only language telling you that these quartiles you found in B need to be your boundaries for C. Okay, that's all. You can keep going.
And for this task with the telephone landlines and the countries,
Yes.
the one you just showed, what would be my base variable, like the one I would divide into 4, like the telephone lines?
It would.
Okay.
But I don't want to just tell you yes, it would without just pointing out how you know that. Okay. In the question, it says based on the telephone lines variable, which is also called V59. Okay, so it's saying that is your OG variable, and now you're creating a new one based off of that one.
Okay, so most of the time when I have this kind of task, my base variable is like they mention it.
Well, they have to. You literally cannot do this kind of function without it. So when you go into recode into different variables, you have to select your base variable so that it knows what exactly you're basing it on.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question because I'm doing the exercise 3, the C, or like week 3, exercise 3, the C. And when we have to make I'm dividing it into the higher and lower values, but then it doesn't let me put like from the median the lower and the median the highest. Is it because I'm putting the median in both that I have to put a number extra so it's divided? Am I explaining it well?
I think so. So that all sounds really weird. So can you tell me the process you went through to find your median first?
So I first went to data and only took the theme of lifestyle.
Correct. Okay.
And then I went to transform the recode into different variables.
Okay, so before you did that, you needed to find out what the median was.
Oh yeah, sorry, I did that as well. So I found the median that was 9,894.5 with a frequency table.
That is the correct median.
And then to do the transformation, I did the recode into different variables.
Yeah.
But then when I do the range, but then when I try to do the same, but then the range through highest using the same number, SPSS doesn't let me go through with it.
All right, I'm gonna do it in front of y'all right now, and we'll see if we can troubleshoot YouTube views. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Isn't it crazy that I've taught this course so many times that I know that that's the correct median from that variable from that data set?
Yeah. Don't you
Oh,
get fed up of SPSS? I think it's the worst.
you know what? I hated it when I was in IPCOM. It was the worst. I loved my hand calculations. I hated SPSS. But you know what? Once you're familiar with it, it's like the easiest thing in the world. You could do it in your sleep. It's just because it's so new. That's the only thing. It's new to you guys. All right, what are we working with? We want lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which is
2.
lifestyle 2. Lovely. Okay. Data. You said it was 9894.5.
Oh yeah, I got a different.
You got a different what, sorry?
Oh no, yes. I got 9894.5, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
For the median.
Cool. Right. Transform, recode into different variables. Okay. So now we want to put in, what is it?
Likes.
Likes. Thank you. All right. Likes. Okay. Give it a name. Likes. Give my keyboard a second. Likes groups and change. Okay, range lowest through value would be 9894.5. Okay, and that would be value number 1. Okay, value through highest, same thing, 9894.5. Value 2, add. So it looked like that, yeah?
Oh, but it doesn't let me go through with this. I think it's my SPSS then.
SPSS is horrendous software in terms of glitches. So
I should just try again.
Close your SPSS, restart it, and try it again. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, now it's working. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Could you maybe do question D of the same exercise? Because I don't really understand it.
Sure thing. As asking your questions are very helpful because it helps everybody. Just so you know. All right. Oh, where are my ding tings? Okay, question D. All right, using a crosstab, look at the relationship between the variable category ID and your newly created variable with your two values. Okay, paste the crosstab in the assignment. Cool. What's tripping you up in terms of the understanding part? Oh.
I think I never know which one to do in the columns and rows.
Right. Okay. So that's confusion about independent versus dependent variable, right? Because your independent is always in columns. So your two variables, you've got category ID. Now, if we go and have a look, was it YouTube views? Let's go find YouTube views and investigate that. Oh my gosh, I have so many documents open. I'm a surprisingly disorganized person. Close that one out. Okay, YouTube views, lovely. So if we go to category ID, what's going on with category? Okay, so you can tell that obviously the unit of analysis here is YouTube videos, right? Okay, and these are all the categories of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of categories. Wow. That's huge. Okay.
But I don't really know what they're trying to say with it. So to find out if it's...
Okay, so yeah, I'll take you through it. So basically it's saying what kind of YouTube video is this? That's what category is describing, right? Is it a pet YouTube video or is it a like music YouTube video? Okay. And if we're looking at a relationship, as it says in the question, right? It's a relationship between the category of a YouTube video and what is your newly created variable that you created here. It has to do with the number of likes a video gets, right? So it's asking, is there a relationship between what kind of video it is and how many likes it gets? Does it sound like there would be a relationship there?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Okay. Now tell me this. Is the number of likes a YouTube video gets, is that going to impact which category it's placed in?
No.
No, which means your likes is not your independent. Okay. It's more likely, much more likely, that the category it's in is going to impact the likes. Okay, so category has to be your independent. It's the impactor. So you would put category in the columns. And do your thing. So did I created it? Oh, likes groups. Didn't even create my value labels. That's lazy. Okay, I got to do this, otherwise the analysis is going to look funny. All right, so to do your crosstab, you go analyze descriptive statistics, crosstabs. Okay. Category in the column and likes groups in the row. So you would not be able to use number of likes as one of your variables, just to make sure you're sure, because that's an interval ratio variable. Crosstabs only deals with categorical variables. So that's the whole purpose of creating the likes groups variable. Then you click on your cells, you want your column percentages, and we can have a look at output.
I'm sorry, do we only always want our column percentages, or?
Yeah, for crosstabs, the only percentages you need are column.
Okay.
Yeah, and when they say column percentages, it's referring to the fact that the percentages were calculated going in columns. So if you look here at autos and vehicles, this 87.5% was calculated by looking at 35 out of the total of 40. So it's going in a column. 35 divided by 40 multiplied by 100 gives you the percent 87.5. That's what's meant by column percentages.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, I have a question. It's pretty well dumb. But how do we calculate a Pearson's R? Because we are doing the second week assignment and it's question 3.
Yeah.
We did a scatter plot, but I don't know, it was out of my head. How do we?
You don't remember the Pearson's R? Okay. I have a slide for it, but if you would prefer, I can show you again.
Yeah, that's fine. That works.
Okay. I'll show you. Which one should we use? Let's use the OG. Okay. Okay, for Pearson's R, analyze. And you find correlate, because it's a correlation. And you choose bivariate. Okay, then you'll have the opportunity to just put in your 2 variables. Doesn't matter which order they are in. And that's it. Pop in those 2 variables and you click OK. And your output should show up with a correlation table, and your Pearson correlation is right there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Could you also do, please, week 2's question 3's A?
Sure thing. When you say week 2, which one, sorry?
Question 3.
Question 3. Uh-huh. Yes, this one. Okay. You know what? This is a good one. I'm glad you asked. There's an explanation lying in here. So without running any analyses, identify two variables from the sample that you expect to be negatively related to each other. Okay, why I say this is an explanation opportunity is that if you don't understand what a positive relationship actually means or what a negative relationship means, that's a problem, okay? So a positive relationship, which would be the increasing line on the scatter plot, means that both the variables are heading in the same direction. Okay, so I want you to think of the example we just did with critic score and global sales. That has a positive relationship. What that means is that when the critic score goes up, global sales also goes up. And conversely, if critic score goes down, global sales also goes down. Okay, I want you to think of it as like a plus and a plus or a minus and a minus. Okay, both those situations make a positive. Negative then means that the variables go in the opposite direction. So when one increases, the other decreases. I'm going to open this data file to give you an example. So you know how like with batteries, like in physics, a positive and a negative make a negative reaction. Okay. All right, this is the one with all the stats about a country. Okay. So if you just read through these variables, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find two that would go in the opposite direction. Okay, so how about a very simple one? Do you see number of hospital beds per 1,000 people? Okay, now let's think about hospital beds. If there are more hospital beds available in hospitals, what would we expect to go down? Right, maybe death rate, you know? Let's look at something like that, like a death. Oh, they're at the top, death rate up there. Do you see what I mean? So that's what the question's asking you to do is just read through these, pick one, and then try and find one that you would expect to go in the opposite direction. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Could you maybe please show again the solutions for assignment 3, tasks 3, C, and D, because I'm not 100% sure if I did it right.
Okay. I might ask you to repeat those again. Oh, where is it? Okay, week 3. Yes, lovely.
Yeah, and
question 3, you said. This one.
Yeah, 3, C, and D. I think you already did C, but I'm not sure if I have the results right.
Oh, okay, sure. I can actually look at that. So you're fine with C. You don't need that to be shown.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Then I will have my output of that around. Yeah, here it is. This is the output. So for the crosstabs, this is the one. So you can see your variables, right? You can see the category. It's listed there, all these categories. And remember, because you filtered the data, it would not just be all categories, it would be lifestyle themed categories. And your likes groups, whatever you called it, from C. Have you got it right?
My C looks different. Like, this is how my D looks. But my C is just has frequency percentage. Just kind of like it's a really small crosstab which includes frequency percentage, valid percent, and cumulative percentage.
Oh, that's not a crosstab. That sounds like it's just a frequency table. So this is what your D looks like. That's good. Then you're correct on D. Sorry, then I misinterpreted what you wanted from me. Yes, I'll run a frequency table and it'll probably look just like yours. Not that. I'm in the wrong data file. Oh. Okay, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, your C should look a bit more like that.
Okay, yeah, I have the same. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So we've got a few minutes left. If you haven't finished doing these questions, feel free to continue doing them, and then we can, if there's any problems, we can address them at the beginning of the session tomorrow. Okay. Okay, guys, for aesthetic reasons, I'm on the last slide. So thank you for joining today's training, and I really do hope it was helpful. And I believe that you can actually review my tutoring skills if you'd like to, so please do that. But honestly, it matters mostly to me that you feel like a little more confident now going into the SPSS test. So yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank
See you
you.
tomorrow.
Thank you so much. See you.
See you. Bye.
See you.